Yes. Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing? My name is Alex Shani. I am the Industry Development Coordinator here at Manitoba Music, and I would like to thank you for joining us for our first in the Gear Up series. Really happy that you could join with us. We're going to be doing this 3 times over the next month. And oh, by the way, happy belated International Women's Day. So we really wanted to celebrate that here at Manitoba Music. And that's why we're doing this series here. So I want to make sure that I begin by recognizing that Manitoba Music was founded on Treaty 1 territory, which is the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. And I'd like to recognize the strong Inuit community here in Manitoba. Manitoba Music respects the treaty in which our organization resides, and we commit to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of collaboration and reconciliation. Okay, once again, Alex Shani, Industry Development Coordinator here at Manitoba Music, and today we're joined by Simone Torres and Heather Thomas. Heather obviously is one of our members, amazing artist, performs under Diaphony. I'm sure you've heard of her, and if you haven't, you're really gonna have to check her out. Anyways, we had a great idea. Heather has worked with Simone earlier in one of the other events we had done, which was the Songwriter Challenge, and I thought, what a great idea to pair the two up again to have a nice little conversation and get it going. And seeing as this is our first presentation of the whole Gear Up series, I just wanted to let you guys know exactly what it is. Gear Up is a speaker series featuring prominent women engineers and producers. The virtual speaker series aims to create connections with aspiring women and non-binary audio engineers and producers and established professionals alike. We want to build awareness of the issues in the music community through discussion of career journeys, creative and business mentorship, and lived experiences. So, without further ado, this is the first Gear Up speaker session. I'm going to hand it over to Heather, and Heather is going to talk to Simone, and everybody is going to have the most entertaining time. So just want to remind you that Gear Up is brought to you as well by Factor and Manitoba Film and Music. So I have nothing more to say. It's time for me to get out of the way and for this thing to happen. So Heather, boom.
Hello.
Hello. Seamless. Great job.
Oh, it's so nice to be here with you.
You too. So good to see you again.
Yeah, so Alex said I had the privilege of working with you on the Canadian Songwriter Challenge. And you have all this knowledge about vocal production and studio engineering. I'm super excited to get into it. You've worked with Jessie J, Cardi B, Sia, Normani, and by the way, Motivation is one of my biggest jams. I love it so much.
Woohoo, that's awesome.
Thank you so for being so generous and spending this time with us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about gender equality in audio recording and music production. But before we do that, I want to get into a little bit about what you do and how you got into it. Yeah. So there's so many. One of the things that I was thinking about when I heard that I was going to get to talk to you was that there are so many roles in the music industry that most people, even people who've been in the industry for a long time, wouldn't even know existed.
Absolutely.
And for me, vocal producer is one of them that I don't know if I knew about it before I met you.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from you. But I think people might be confused or maybe even intimidated by that title, or like the titles where they don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Would you describe that role and kind of what you do?
Yeah, totally. So I didn't know about it either until my last year of college. I had no idea it existed. But vocal production it's like a producer, but specifically for singing. So it's a mix between a vocal coach and a producer, kind of, and an engineer. I mean, you do like a lot of things together, but it's really working hand in hand with the artist to make it so that the best performance is done for the record, which is going to be different than what a vocal coach was doing, which is like technique and whatever. Sometimes we're throwing all that out the window. And so we're doing it from a producer's hat, right? What's best for the recording. And it's really fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when would someone need a vocal producer? Like what stage of art, like what stage in their career are artists coming to hire you or see you in the studio?
Yeah, so normally it's a little later on. Um, it, some people like to start off earlier. I mean, the reason that I got into vocal producing was because as a singer in the studio, I didn't know how to communicate what I didn't like about what I was hearing back or what to do differently. I just knew that it didn't sound like me and it didn't feel like that. So as a vocal producer, I act as that bridge, right? So it's like I can speak both of the languages. So I'm able to take, okay, this is how you're feeling. That's what it means that I need to do technically to make you feel this way. And there's a lot of psychology behind it. So yeah, so it's normally a little later in your career, but I hope that more and more people start to see this as an option and start to do it, and so that younger artists can get access to a vocal producer too, because it can make a really big difference.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine. So you said you found out about this role when you were in your last year of college. Was it
Yeah.
an immediate like, oh, I'm going to immediately pursue this as something I want to do, or kind of did it take some time? What happened? What was your journey?
Yeah. So uh I'll talk a little bit about my journey even to that point if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um so like I mentioned, I started off as a singer. I knew nothing about the engineering side at all. All I knew is that I wanted to have a career in music in some way. So I thought that a way to do that wasn't being a music teacher was to do music business. And so that's why I went to school, went to Berkeley. I did singing as my principal. Um, I had been gigging since I was 9 until I went to college. And I gigged like 5 times a week in college in like wedding bands and things like that. So I had a lot of like performance experience. So I wanted to do the business side. Started doing that, didn't love it. I was like, okay, I still really want to be more creative. And my mom is a calculus teacher, and my grandpa was the head of the math department. And so I've always really liked math and science. And I was like, I didn't know that engineering was even an option, like music engineering. I didn't know that it existed. And it also was just such a boys club at the time. It's changing a lot now, which is amazing. But at the time, it was just kind of like, no, like you're a singer. And it's like, so I don't know. I just kind of hit a point where I had no recordings in my whole years and years of singing and being in the studio. I had no recordings I was proud of and that I loved and that I felt like me. And so I was like, I'm just going to learn this on my own. Not on my own, but I'm going to learn this. So I, tried out for the MP&E major at Berkeley and I got in, but it was quite difficult because I came from zero. Like I knew nothing about recording at all. All I knew was about singing. So it took a few years of just being like studying really hard and like getting to those points. And then I ended up working in the tech shop at school. So I learned how to take apart microphones and how to build gear and things like that. And that was really cool to me. So I was sitting at that kind of point where I was really enjoying how creative you could be, even as an engineer. When I had one of my classes where my teacher did a presentation on Ku Carell, who ended up being my mentor. Um, and he's just one of the best vocal producers in the world. And until then, I had no idea that this job or career existed. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this feels like it's the culmination of everything that I've been working like towards like in my life. And I was like, this just feels right. And so, yeah, since that was like a light bulb moment for me. And yeah, and then that was it. Vocal production was it for me.
Amazing. I did a little reading about Kook and his discography is out of this world, like amazing. He's done so
Yeah.
many songs. What brought you two together and kind of he kind of took you under his wing, I think.
Yeah.
The
So
mentee.
exactly. And so when I was at Berkeley, when I saw that presentation, I was like, okay, that's who I want to work for. That's who I want to mentor me. That's it. So I took the next year because this was like I did a summer semester and another fall because I had 2 majors. So I took the next year to try to make myself someone that could be really valuable to someone like that. And so I learned how to tune vocals really well. Well, at the time I thought was really well. You learn a lot on the job. But I would record myself like singing bad and then trying to make it sound as good as I could. And the whole thing with working at the tech shop, I wanted to know that stuff so that I could bring that kind of value add. And I interviewed people he had worked with before on his workflow so that if I ever got the chance to work with him, I would like kind of I had practice under my belt on that instead of
Mhm.
just like going in green. And so yeah, so I tried all these things. And then I kind of just made it very known that I wanted to work with Kook. Like anyone that I knew that had any kind of tie to the music industry, I was like, I want to work for Ku Karel. And I sent like promo packages to his office and emails and all this kind of stuff. But the way that it actually happened was one day, someone at Berkeley was just like, I hear you're trying to work with Kook. And I was like, yes. And they're like, we're going to help make that happen. And I was like, because they had just met him. And so then I ended up getting an email from Kook's assistant being like, Kook says you could text him. And I was like, oh my God, after like a year of like trying for this, I was like, he says I could text him, crazy. No response. And I was like, okay, well, I knew that he was working on Anti, Rihanna's album in LA. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to move to LA after school. And so moved to LA, got a job doing AV part-time at hotels, which sucked, but it allowed me to have a really flexible schedule. So I was like, okay, if he lets me intern for him, this I can choose my hours for and I can support myself. So I had that. And then I was just, I kept trying to like meet with him. It kept falling through until one day it didn't. And he finally agreed to meet with me. And I always had my bound like letters of recommendation specific for him, resume, all these things like in my car, like a dress shirt, just always ready until, yeah, he finally agreed to meet with me one morning. And then I started working with him from then on. I worked with him for 5 years. I moved to Atlanta because that's where he was. And he was like, you want to keep working with me? Move there. I was like, great. And so I did. And yeah, and so that was a huge part of my career. And I'm so grateful for everything that I learned in that. Because you learn a lot in school, but you learn a lot on the job and a lot from mentors. I think mentorship is just immensely important. And being loyal to that too is just being loyal to that. And a good person can get you a lot further in this industry than you think that it can. Because in music, like it's all about good vibes and like we're making music for a living. So it's not too serious, like it can get stressful for sure, but you're spending all these hours with people. You want to have someone that you're comfortable being around and it doesn't make the room darker, if that makes any sense. So yeah, so that's how that all started. And I have lots of details about that, but whatever you guys want to know, I'm here to share.
Well, that just sounds like an incredible level of commitment and perseverance that you worked for over a year to get this person's attention that you really wanted to work with, and it paid off, which is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just blown away by that.
Oh, thanks.
Incredible. And moving to be near your mentor, just incredible, honestly. And that probably drove you to push to be the best that you can be, just to be in those spheres where you wanted to be.
Oh, absolutely. And like that was the whole thing. It was also kind of just like proving that I deserved to be there for a while, of just like trying to always be really attentive and like even just like on random levels. Like if you're in a session with an artist and he like one time, one of the first sessions I was in with Kook, the artist came in heels and then would record barefoot, like without shoes because, feeling grounded when you're singing. And like, but she'd always get cold. So like I went out and I bought socks for her and I brought them the next day. It's like little things, that are small, but make a big difference to people,
Right.
It's just caring makes you stand out, which is great.
Yeah. That's so meaningful.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in the studio with two people that you don't necessarily know that well and you're trying to perform your best. Oh, that's amazing. So if you could go back to those days, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would do differently? Is there any advice you would give yourself when you were just starting that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just encourage myself to just do it because when you're just starting in a tech field that's very male dominated specifically, it's very easy to feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, maybe whatever. But I'm just so glad that I did it. There were definitely a few moments where I was like, I don't know, and I'm just so grateful because I love it so much. And I just think visibility is so important. That's why I love doing things like with you guys and with We Are Moving the Needle, Women's Audio Mission, all these things, because I really believe if you see it, you can be it. And it's just, not a lot of people know that there are these careers in STEM in the music industry, that are really cool. So if I just had to tell myself something, I think it would also just be to trust in my ability, because you start to get really anxious, and because you're trying to do really well and you want to please everybody and like all these things. But there's also, it comes to a point where you have to realize like there's a reason that you're in the seat that you're in, and not the 100 other people that want to be there, right? And
Mhm.
trusting it, that it's in that, and that it's in all the different life experiences that you have that brought you to this place, your ethic, your work ethic, your drive, your morals, like all these things. There's a reason that you're there. So I mean, it would be nice to have gotten rid of the imposter syndrome of it all a little earlier, but but that's all real.
Yeah, I know you can. It's funny because you want to go back and redo things sometimes, but you would never have gotten to where you are without having all
Exactly.
those struggles and going through all that adversity
Yeah,
and having people
exactly.
not believe in you, right?
Yeah, exactly. It fuels you sometimes.
Yeah, it truly does. Do you think there's a key to your success? Like, do you think there's what about your success is keeping you moving forward? What about you is
Yeah.
keeping your creativity going? Like, what drives you?
Um, what drives me? I mean, I just have a lot of internal motivation that there's just like, I set goals all the time. I'll set my 10-year goals, 5-year goals, and then break it down. And especially when I was starting off, that helped me a lot, because it's very easy to say, I want to win a Grammy, right? How? What is your plan, right? And so if you take that, okay, that's at year 5. What's year 4? What's year 3, 2? What's 6 months from now? And breaking it down like that helped me move forward in my career very quickly. Um, which I really encourage anyone that's starting out to really try to do that. Make your big goals, write them down, but then break them down and put them on like an actual timeline. Really helps. Um, but I think more so, like, I hope that what I'm known for is I'm very careful about the energy in a room, and like me just as a human being, I feel that I'm very empathetic. Uh, and because of that, that is so much of the job as a vocal producer, because this, as a singer, it's really vulnerable when you're in the studio a lot of the time, because you're your instrument. And so like if you're trying to hit a note or whatever, and like you have to feel comfortable to crack, to like try something new, to like push these boundaries, or you're not going to get the magic in the recording, right? It's just going to sound comfortable, which is fine. But I think that I hope that that's what I bring to the table a lot. That's special.
Mhm.
And that's something that, part of that I learned from Kook too. Like it's all about the energy in the room. And that's part of your job as a vocal producer, is being the keeper of that. And so you have to be able to come in a blank slate, so that whatever is going on in the artist's life, whatever, you can kind of take that on a bit and then be their partner. And then sometimes like there'll be A&R, management, all these people in a room. Like I'm working on a TV show right now, doing the vocal production. It's a musical. And sometimes there's like 10 people on Zoom, and the artist like watching it on our session, and I just kick everyone out, because it's like if I see that the artist is feeling stressed, they're not going to say,
Mhm.
oh, I wish they weren't watching me, because then they feel whatever. And it's like, no, I'll kick everybody out, like you take that on. So yeah, I don't know, I think it's just, you just got to be a people person a bit, if
Yeah.
that makes any sense.
Oh, I totally understand. Having been in rooms with multiple different producers, there's definitely vibes that work and vibes that do not work for a performance. And yeah,
Yep.
it's so important. It's so important to
Yep.
have the singer's best interests in mind and kind of what they need in mind. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. So as a woman, let's get into it. How would you say your perspectives and your lived experience, just in general, has benefited you most in the industry? Like, do you think
Oh
that
yeah.
you brought, like, what have you brought as a woman to this industry that you feel
Yeah.
powerful about?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny, because when I was starting out, it was more so like, it was it it was harder to be a woman in this, I think, just because it was more so you're doubted as soon as you walk in the room, and you have to prove yourself more to be seen as even equal.
Mm,
But now people are so happy about the fact that I'm a woman, and it's awesome. And I think that it comes with too, it's the empathy piece that I think that, we're naturally very good at, and because it's also like a little bit of it's empathy. It's also kind of nurturing a little bit because it's like, say, there's like two schools of vocal production, for example. There's one that's like a little bit harsher, like, no, you have to go harder, blah, blah, blah. You don't, you know, I don't know. You catch bees with honey. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, everything's yes and creating those environments. I'm really grateful to also be able to create a safer space because there's a lot of artists that are female or female identifying that I've worked with that they're like, oh yeah, this producer's hit on me, this producer's hit on me, blah 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 blah, and being able to kind of be more of a safe space now feels really good, and I think that
Yeah.
that's really cool to be able to do um, as a woman. But yeah, there's lots of things, and I also think too, even so, as a writer or as a when I'm engineering, whatever, like a lot of the times because it's such a male dominated field, just being someone that's in the room and that can give a different perspective on how something can be interpreted uh, is helpful too. So I think there's lots of things, but I think that there's definitely needs. I hope that we hit a day soon where it's equal in the amount of men versus women in the industry, and I think we're on the way there. But
Yeah.
there's a lot that like we bring to the table, and just diversity in general brings to the table. Like not even just men and women, non-binary, trans. Like having more people telling the stories that are being listened to and are being received is going to be really cool.
Yeah. So you've been doing this for, is it 10 years almost?
Um,
7 years? Sorry.
Man, no, I think like seven. I think like
7 years.
7 or 8. 20. Well, I graduated college in 2015, and I started
Okay.
working for Kook like a month after that. So
Okay. That's
yeah,
it then. Yeah, that sounds like
yeah,
seven. I'm not the best with
yeah. It's
mental
like seven
math,
years.
but
Yeah,
just let it be 7 years.
yeah,
So I've been in the music industry myself since 2014, and I've
yeah,
noticed a huge difference in my own scene. But how has the gender equity and women in production roles, has that changed over the years? Has that
yeah,
increased? You mentioned that it was
yeah,
much more of a boys' club when you started.
yeah. It's increased a lot. Like even from 2016, I remember a specific incident where like it's very much you're proving yourself. Like you walk in and you have to prove yourself, and that happens everywhere, right? Especially until you get to a certain point, you kind of are proving yourself no
Mhm.
matter who you are. So it was a lot more so then. Now it's really cool that I feel like I walk in and everyone's just excited about the fact that I'm like not only good at what I do, but that I am a woman. And I think
Mhm.
that's really cool. So I feel like that change has happened honestly in the last few years.
Yeah.
I've felt it the most. I don't know about you.
And are you seeing more women, like other engineers, other producers in the studio with you? Is that coming more to the front or
Starting to,
yeah.
yeah. Definitely starting to. I've met a lot more, especially living in LA. When I lived in Atlanta, it was a lot less. Um, in LA, I'm seeing a lot more women, like specifically like studios that I work at, like The Village or um Henson, like have
Mm.
really awesome techs, like head techs that are women, and like uh so there's definitely more and more, but I want to see more too, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
What do you think
On
we
the
can,
bigger project.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
totally agree. What do you
Yeah.
think we can do to kind of make sure that that happens, that engineering and studio and tech people can get more opportunities?
Yeah. So there's an organization called We Are Moving the Needle that Emily Lazar, the mastering engineer, founded, that I'm on the soundboard for. And they're doing a lot of really cool things that are tangible. So they're doing a lot of mentorship. They're doing a lot of scholarships. They're doing a lot of partnerships with different gatekeepers. Because the thing is right now, a lot of the gatekeepers are still men. And so you
Mhm.
need partners, right? We can't just do it all on our own. So I think that's really cool to partner with A&Rs and things and say, okay, I'm an A&R. I'm going to commit to hiring half and half, and like reaching out for more women, and or things like She Is the Music. They have databases that you can search for whatever you're looking for, whatever kind of engineer, producer, tech, whatever it is. And there's, all these qualified women that show up, and you can see the resumes and all that kind of stuff. So I think honestly, it's just going to be more eyes open, and just like people that are in those positions to be hiring to be conscious about that. And it's this TV show that I'm working on specifically, like it is the most diverse production that I've been a part of, and it is so amazing. It's really, really lovely. So I think it's moving in a good direction. But
do you mind me asking what the TV show is?
so it's Rise of the Pink Ladies, Greece, Rise of the Pink Ladies. Yeah. So it'll be really cool.
Great.
Yeah. It'll be on Paramount Plus. They've announced it, so I can say that.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Are there certain areas of the music industry that you'd like to see women progress in specifically? Is there somewhere that's really in need?
I think production.
Yeah.
Like track production. Like it's very rare. Yeah. That I see that I see female producers. I could probably name them on one hand, the ones that I know. Because I see more female engineers than I do producers, like for tracks. I think that would just be really cool.
That's so true. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, producers. Yeah, you're right. We do need more. We do need more female producers.
I know.
What can the industry do? What do you think to better support women in production? I know we've got all these initiatives, bringing women, especially beginners, into the sphere of production and learning about all the different skills. Is there something that we can do to bring kind of mid-level or higher level skilled people in? Are there any initiatives at that level, or are you kind of on your own at that
point? That's the thing. I don't know. And I think that is definitely a space that needs to be filled, a gap that needs to be filled, because just because you're into your career doesn't mean that you don't need these opportunities still, and that those opportunities weren't blocked from you for a long time. So I think, if I were someone that's looking for more work right now at that level, I would join organizations like Women's Audio Mission or Moving the Needle, things like that, because even just meeting the other women on the board, like on the boards of those things, involved in those organizations, I can't tell you how much work that I've gotten just from like meeting people at these networking events, because it's just getting to know each other. It's getting to know, oh my gosh, this great mixing engineer, I just had no idea, I hope that there's more initiatives like that. But I think that if you're at that point right now, that's probably my biggest piece of advice, is just to expand your network. Because the thing is, we're all going to keep moving up in our careers, moving. And who knows, your friend will end up being in a point of power, maybe at some point, where she can help hire you, for something. So
isn't that funny? Yeah. I feel like maybe this is just my bias, but I feel like women take a little bit longer to decide they're ready to put themselves out there and decide.
1,000%.
Right. It's a little bit of a, what's the word? Imposter syndrome.
No, absolutely it is.
It's such a boys' club. It's really hard to feel like you belong there, right?
Yes. Yeah, and it's funny because I'll talk about this a bunch at different things that I go and I speak at, because for example, a guy, if they typically, I'm not, you'd never say all of anything, but typically it's easier for a guy to say, I'm a mix engineer or I'm a mastering engineer. It's hard. A woman is less likely to say that unless they've mastered that thing, right? A guy is more likely to say it if they're at an intermediate level. And I think that's why it's like we kind of wait until we feel like we're at this level where blah, 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 but we're holding ourselves back, because it's the imposter syndrome of it all. Because you have to realize at the end of the day, everyone's learning still. Everything is like evolving and evolving and evolving. You're always going to be learning, especially in a tech field like this. So it's only you that's holding you back. And like, you learn from being in situations that are a little uncomfortable too, so.
Yeah, I remember doing the songwriter challenge. You gave us a tip that was so specific but so genius that everyone in the room, even the studio where we were, he was like, the producer there was just like, never heard that before. And we tried it and it worked so well. And it was
good.
like, oh, no one ever has all of the knowledge. No one ever has all of the
No,
information. And it should be a collaborative effort, right? We have to kind of come
absolutely.
together,
Yeah.
find commonalities and kind of find each other's strengths and work where
Yeah.
there's weaknesses, right?
Absolutely. I even have this client right now that I vocal produce. No, I'm not even vocal produce. I engineer. I don't even vocal produce her because she vocal produces herself. And I learn things from her vocal production wise that I use, you know? And it's like so cool, you know? But yeah, just have to be open to always learning. And I think that that's also just another thing to keep in mind in your career. Sometimes because you've worked so hard at something, it's easy. I mean, I've done it. It's very easy to close off and be like a little more closed to when people are trying to share things. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to actively try and be open. And I mean, because yeah, we don't know everything. Even if we've studied all these things, there's always something that someone's figured out or whatever, and we don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So for myself, I would consider myself on the beginner side, close to not knowing that much about production.
Okay.
But I'm very interested in learning, mainly for a lot of the same reasons that you had when you were just starting out, of not
Hmm.
feeling always completely satisfied with what you got down in the studio. And I feel like I've gotten my best takes alone at home,
Yep.
doing my own recording a lot of
Yeah.
the time. And it's just a matter, it's a level of comfort, it's a level
Yep.
of my process, being able to do
Yeah.
that. But what
Yeah.
advice would you give someone like myself, or like probably a lot of
Yeah.
the people watching that maybe are starting out or maybe have a little bit of experience, but want to learn more and grow our engineering and production skills and knowledge?
Okay. So from to be more comfortable in other situations or to learn more production or
Well, I
engineering
think
stuff.
I think they go hand in hand, I would think, because you
Okay.
can communicate, like, I don't have the ability to communicate that clearly
Got
about
it.
what I
Got
want.
it.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Okay. Now I understand. Yeah. So that, I mean, that's huge. So I think like there's learning even what the basics of things are. So what EQ is, what compression is, and what like delay, reverb, like time-based effects are.
Mm-hmm.
Learning what those are going to open up a lot more doors for you to be able to communicate with whoever's engineering. Um, I had no idea what that was when I was learning. Like especially compression, because you can really tend to be overly compressed sometimes as a singer, and it feels like you're not a. It's a feeling, and not being able to express that. Hey, I don't want that is
Yeah.
really difficult. So it's learning what that's doing, what those specific things are doing are really helpful. Lynda.com offers a lot of really great resources for different DAWs, uh, things like that. Honestly, YouTube, there's so much that you could learn. Pensado's Place, all these things. But I think if you're an artist that is saying, hey, I want to take more things into my own hands, I want to be able to communicate better, the things I would do is learn about compression, EQ, reverb, delay. And that's really that those are the things. I would make sure that you have a grasp on what they are. And then even start to pay attention to what microphones you like singing on. Where what feels good, what doesn't feel good. And when you learn about EQ and stuff, that's going to help you say, "Oh, I don't like this microphone so much because the high end of it of my voice isn't coming across well," because now you've learned that about EQ. And then keeping note of that, so then when you go into a session, you know, "Oh, I don't like singing on that mic. I like singing on this mic. It's not just what one is pretty, you know?" But I mean, which is very easy to do, you know? And I think even doing like a blind shootout, if you ever have a chance to, where you just sing the same thing on like a few different microphones and don't know what they are, and you just listen to them separately and like be like, okay, I like this better than this. That's how I found out that I like singing on a U87 for my voice, but I record other people a lot of the time in pop music on like a C800, which is a lot brighter, or a 251, which like for if I want a warmer sound. But for me, a U87, because I'm a belter, the capsule can take that belting well. And so even though it's a cheaper microphone, it works better on my voice. And so it's not one size fits all for any of this.
Right.
So I think by learning like those core things, it'll help you do things like pick microphones better, do all that. And then online resources for wherever DAW you have. and that you want to use. The DAW doesn't really matter. It's whatever you're the most comfortable with, but make it so that you feel comfortable recording at home somehow, right? So you can do that very simply. So it's by learning those things, right? So you can make it so that you have some reverb, you have some EQ, you have some compression, and then your mic chain. If you get like an Apollo twin, like that's what I have here, you can do things very simply. You just kind of want a clean sound, and so that you can take a little bit more of that power into your own hands a bit. Um, and even so that you can just feel freer to create, like when you're writing or when you're, you know, doing whatever. Like I didn't know that I liked to write until later on in my career because I worked with songwriters like Sean Garrett and The Dream. And I saw that the way that they wrote was they sing random things on top of tracks. And then they listen back and it's all mumble lyrics, mumble melodies, whatever. Then you arrange the melody, whatever, how you like it. You arrange it how you like it. And that's how you get a song. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could do that. Like as a singer, it's way different than just sitting down with a pen and paper and being like, okay. So it's just like learning these things just starts to unlock your power that you have a little bit and just get rid of like these roadblocks that are there that don't need to be there. Because it's all at a very basic level. It can be really simple to do these kind of things. So yeah, that's my advice. There's so much you could learn on YouTube, like, and lynda.com is great. So
lynda.com, write that down.
Yeah.
So you did mention your own singing. Are you working, like, are you still working on your own projects? Like, how would you describe your sound? What are you working on?
Yeah, so I am excited because this is the first time in my life that I'm going to put out a project of my own. It's funny because I started all of this. I started all this like for that, and then I kind of lost sight of that a little bit along the way because you have to, to master a craft, you have to really dig into it. And so that's what I did. I put in my 10,000 hours and kept my head down. And then now it feels really good to be able to kind of start lifting my head up and be like, okay, these are things that I want to be doing. So it also took me a really long time to be able to record myself because it's not even like the knowledge of how to, it's getting out of your head and being able to be objective about it. Because I would try to record a cover, for example, and have 100 takes. Not like be able to find anything that I would comp it so many times, so many different ways. Nothing was ever the way I wanted it to be, the way I wanted it to be. And it just took time for me to get out of my own head and start being like, okay, no, this stuff sounds good. And now it's like I barely do any takes. Like I've learned with myself, like I punch myself a lot because I put my microphone right here and I'm tracking and I do all that. All that to say is it's always a journey with that and being able to be objective and patient with yourself as a singer. But yeah, my sound now, I don't really know how to describe my sound. I think it's a bit between Joss Stone-esque and more R&B, like in somewhere in there where it's like a little more vintage, but I don't know. Honestly, for this project, I just decided I'm throwing all rules out the window and I'm just going to create what feels good to create and what feels like me. And that's been really freeing. And I kept it really close and I didn't really show many people. And I just kind of was like, okay, I'm going to create with this one producer that I've been friends with forever. And he understands me musically really well. And so, yeah, so I'm really excited to do that. And I also sing backgrounds on a lot of the things that I work on, which is so helpful. And that's another thing that you can do. And I'm excited to keep doing more of that on the film and TV level too. Because it's great. It's just fun to be able to like exercise all different parts of your skill set,
Yeah. Oh, I'm really excited to hear it when it comes out.
Thank you.
That's exciting. Yeah. I only have a couple questions left for you.
Yeah.
We got through stuff pretty quickly today.
Cool.
And you answered several of my questions in other questions already. So that's good.
We love it.
Yeah, you've hit every point. I want to know what trends you're excited about in the music industry. If there's any artists that you're really excited about, what's inspiring you?
So trends in the music industry I'm excited about is I really like that right now people can take things into their own hands with like TikTok. I know it's like silly and cliche, but it's very true. You know, people are getting signed left and right because they're showing their talent on TikTok and because of those algorithms.
Some of those songwriting TikToks where they're like, you sing the other part, and it's like these two amazing songs that two people have put together that don't know each other.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
what?
No, and it's so
Anyway,
cool, you know, and it's just like this talent that otherwise, like before that, you know, labels would really look at they still really do look at following, but Instagram, for example, as it's not really conducive to this kind of a way that TikTok, you're able to just like show your talent and come up in random people's algorithms, you know, and then kind of organically grow. And so that's really cool. Um, I like that trend. I think people I'm excited about, Chloe Bailey, I'm working a bunch with her and she's amazing and I learn a lot from her and I just think she's about to take over the world. And I'm excited about, I don't know, a lot of people. I'm really excited about this show that I'm working on. Um, I'm excited that that more diverse voices are starting to be heard, even on like on a production and music level, on a writing level, on a, you know, what we're seeing in film and TV. I think that's really cool and really special.
mhm.
Um, and I just hope that the trend of that it's cool to be a woman in the music industry and in tech keeps going because I'm like, go, go, go. Let's get
Yes.
more people in here.
Yes, more power to us.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I have one last question for you. And when I found out I was going to be talking to you, I took a little poll amongst some friends.
Okay.
Um, and I just, because I was like, what am I missing? What do I need to know from Simone that no one else can tell us? And the one thing that stuck out to me was maybe you could walk us through what a studio day kind of looks like for a pop star like Cardi B or someone else like
Oh.
that. How is that for you? How is your experience in those types of situations and kind of what happens in a day like that?
Yeah, so I mean, I can't really speak to what they do before and after the studio, but I know for me, I can speak on I make sure that I'm there early. Normally I'm there an hour early. If I'm vocal producing, I'm there 2 hours early normally, first day. I'm just engineering an hour. But yeah, making sure that everything is really prepared because I want to make sure that when we're going, it can just go, go, go.
Mm,
Because sometimes they'll have ideas that if it takes me too long to technically make it so that we can record or make new tracks or like do whatever, those ideas are gone. So I need to
mm,
make sure that I can move really quick. And that comes from being really prepared. So having a really good template, having like everyone's template's going to be different, but I really, really highly, highly recommend taking some time and working on your template. It's going to evolve over the years, but having a good template is the difference between a good engineer and a great engineer.
mm.
And so preparation is really key. I make sure that the environment feels good. Sometimes I bring Palo Santo to the studio and just like making sure it feels good, smells good, you know. The pop filter doesn't smell weird, like just things. Make sure there's no latency on the mic. So yeah, I mean normally yeah, they'll come in, we record, and then they go home. I normally will send them a bounce right away, or I wait until I've, you know, done my thing for a few days. But that's kind of how that goes. I don't know if that answered your question. I just don't know
Yeah.
from their point of view.
Oh, of course, yeah. Just one question. Maybe this is a silly question, but what do
No.
you mean by template? Is that like
Oh
when
yeah.
you're organizing your all your tracks and you have stuff ready to go there and you've got all
Yes.
your presets ready to go?
Yes. So by template, I mean, so in whatever DAW you're using, so I use Pro Tools.
Mm,
So for example, I have where I'm going to put my instrumental because normally I'm working with an instrumental because I'm working with vocals. I have where I'm going to put all my background vocals, how they're going to be affected. That's already all set up. My tuning already set up. My lead vocal tracks, ad lib tracks, so that if they sing something, they want to feel like they're in a reverbed out world, or if they want to feel like you know, it's a telephone effect or low pass effect. Everything is already set and dialed in. So it's just a question of me dragging that there or recording on that track. And so it'll sound like it's already kind of pre-mixed a little bit. Um, so it's setting that up.
yeah,
So everything's easy.
excellent. As a person who loves spreadsheets, I love to hear that. 'Cause When I see a good spreadsheet, I immediately memorize it and I take it home and I recreate it from memory as well as I can. And it's
Really?
so much
That's
easier,
impressive.
honestly.
See, but here's the thing. That's another thing that when we were talking about like what women bring to the table in, these situations, it's so funny because it's very rare to have creatives that are a little bit more type A.
Mhm.
Normally, creatives are a little less organized, just normally. And so like I'm a creative that's very type A. So I have spreadsheets galore, like, I can tell you all these things, like I track everything.
Yeah.
And that's why my sessions are very organized too. And bringing that kind of a thing to the table, like that's a lot of value that you add,
Right.
because you want to make it so that if you're handing off your session to another engineer or whatever, there is no question of what anything is.
Right.
I can't tell you how many sessions float around that you have no idea what anything's going on because everything's named audio.1, audio.2, audio.3. Like,
There's like
no idea.
300.
No idea, So, things like that, like even that, know that that's value that you add to the table, It's cool.
I like that. Cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't catch, that we missed?
Yeah, I mean, I think just don't underestimate the power of being a good person in this industry. And I think that just, yeah, your skill set will get you in the room, but how you make people feel and how you treat people is what's going to keep you there or not. So
Yeah.
I hopefully that also brings you a little bit of solace when you start your career, like a little bit of comfort, because that's what matters more. No one wants someone that's amazing, but it's like a terrible person to be hanging
Yeah.
out with all these hours. So that work hard and then get a mentor if you can. But it's also learning the difference between a mentor that is actually going to help your career and help you learn and someone that's just looking for like a free intern. And like unfortunately that does happen, right? And so I would personally look for a mentor who's not only career you admire, but how they live their life you admire. Like
Mm,
they're the kind of human that they are, because that's going to help weed out a lot. Um so
I love
that's
that.
it. And then just don't give up. And then, and the last thing I'll say is don't feel bad about having to work like any kind of other odd jobs to support yourself in music. Like that one plaque there, that was my first one. That's for the Camila Cabello album. I was still working AV when I got that plaque. I didn't
Mm,
make like any money like in the music industry yet. Like I did that for years. I didn't stop working AV until end of 2018,
wow.
and I had already had all the success, but
Yeah.
it takes a while and just be patient because you just have to stick to it and don't put too much pressure on the monetary aspect and just in the beginning, because you want to be able to get these opportunities that are going to allow you to level up, and then you can charge the things.
Very, very good advice. Amazing. Thank you so much, Simone. It's been a
Of
really
course.
great pleasure speaking with you. I hope we get to speak again soon.
Yes,
Uh,
thank you so much, Heather.
Big thanks to Manitoba Music for inviting both of us to have this conversation. I really appreciate it. Are there any questions? Oh my gosh, how do I see the questions?
Oh,
Oh,
wow, this
also,
is fancy.
could you share any of your favorite mixing tips from
Look at
Andrew?
this, fancy. Hi. So I don't call myself a mix engineer. I make a good rough, and mix engineers spend their lives dedicating themselves to this. But I will say with vocals, adding saturation does wonders. Once I started doing that, it's kind of like a level up. Like you have your compression, your EQ, your effects, whatever. Adding some saturation really helps bring a vocals, especially like more detailed moments, to the forefront. So if you haven't explored that, Saturn 2 is a great plugin for that, by FabFilter.
Cool.
Yeah.
Was that the
Oh,
only?
and tune your 808s.
Oh my
If you have
gosh.
808s, tune your 808s. That is
Yes, yes,
big thing.
yes. Spicy take. I love that.
Can you actually ask for one for me?
Oh, Alex has a question for you.
Yeah.
What other than Saturn? I heard Saturn too. Were there any other?
Other than Saturn 2, is
What
there
are some
anything?
favorite ones?
What are your favorite kind of ones
Oh, for saturation?
for saturation
Well, just plugins in
or
general.
plugins in general?
Plugins in general. Okay, yeah, because honestly, Saturn is like my go-to for
That's
saturation.
important. Okay.
And then I really like the MC404 by McDSP. It's a multi-band compression plugin, and it's great. It's really musical. McDSP's plugins, and I really like their P606 EQ as well. It's very musical as well. Like when you
Mm.
start touching like the high end on it, like 10K, 12K, it's not harsh. It's just done very beautifully. Um, so I really love those. Auto tune, I cannot live my life without.
It's a classic.
AutoTune Pro specifically, because AutoTune Pro has Flex Tune, which is what a lot of people think that Humanize is, but Humanize, that parameter actually is only affecting vibrato. Flex Tune is saying I'm going to allow this much discrepancy between what the note should be and what it is in. And
Mm.
so by playing with Flex Tune, you can make performances sound a lot more natural, which is really nice because you're allowing that many milliseconds of the wrong note to come through, and our ears are only tuned to where things hit at the end, right? Yeah. So love.
Yes.
Alex is very happy. He's thrilled.
No,
So am I.
no, it's so helpful. And then also another tip is this is something I did in my sessions recently, in my template. Set your auto tune, retune speed, key, and scale to be automatable on all the instances you have, so that if you're in a session and like you can just real quick move that, whatever, if something's in a different place, whatever, it is so helpful to have that all set so you don't have to be like, hold on, hold on, hold on. So that's helpful. Um, and then, yeah, I think those are probably my current favorite plugins. If there's anything like specific, other things, I'm happy to.
I had to have one more.
He has one more. Hit,
Yeah,
She had said earlier in the interview, I thought it was really nice, when she was talking about compression, noticing when a vocal is over compressed or whatever. What is it? She talked about a feeling.
yeah.
What is that feeling?
Yeah, you heard that?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, what is that feeling when feeling a vocal is overcompressed? So, as a singer, it feels like you're not expressing the dynamics that you are. So that's why I always tell anyone that I work with, or I just suggest singing with one headphone off, because you need to hear how you sound in the room,
Yeah.
right? So that's one big thing. But yeah, if it's overcompressed going in, or how I'm monitoring it back, it's going to affect how I'm singing, or how the singer sings. Um,
Mhm.
and so like they're not going to push as much, or they're going to push too much, or they're going to do whatever. So especially when I'm recording, I'm compressing very little. I compress more on the back end of it, and it's a very hard feeling to honestly describe. It's just kind of something that I didn't know that it was. But like when I was in college, for example, and people would record me, and because I belt a lot and then I'm singing quietly, they're using the compressor to control my volume instead of riding the mic pre, when they
Yeah.
need to be riding the mic pre, right? And so using compression as color more so than volume control, I think there's different applications for everything, but
Yeah.
a lot of the time it's a good thing.
Okay, one more question from me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
remember when we were working together, and you just mentioned it now, but you put effects through into the singer's headphones as they're
Yeah,
recording, right? Is
yeah.
there a set like specific ones that you always do, or does it change for every artist? How does
It
that work?
changes.
Yeah.
The basis of it stays the same. The
Mm.
song and the artist then will specify it. So like in my template, for example, I have, you know, my lead vocal track, and I have that being sent to two different kinds of reverbs. One's warmer, one's bright. Like one's a hall, one's a plate. Um, I have be sent to a bunch of different kinds of delays that are all labeled, so like quarter note, eighth note, ping pong, a half note, flanger, doubler, like just different things that they're all zeroed, right? But as we figure out what the
Yes.
song is, and what like we can make kind of like a quick rough mix, so that it
Mhm.
feels like you're in that world of the record, because there's nothing worse than just like being a singer and feeling so vulnerable, and then now you're not focused on performance at all, because you're focused on all these little things that you're doing, because you're just like all you hear is your untuned, dry, raw vocal, on top of this thing, and it doesn't feel right. And so now
Mhm.
you're singing in a different way than you would want a performance to be.
Yeah.
So I think it's just making sure always that there's some kind of reverb, some kind of delay, some kind of EQing going on and some kind of tuning. Because like it's funny, like people, I talk about the tuning piece a lot, but it's really important to be able to like be monitoring some kind of a tuned thing most of the time. Even though like I sing, it has nothing to do with like your pitch. We are so conditioned at this point to hear things perfectly so that when you go in there and there's no tuning, as a singer, it can be so, you get so in your head. And so by putting that there, it's not saying don't sing this in tune because you have one earphone off. You're hearing where you are in the room. You're hearing what you're singing for real. But even having it on in chromatic mode, for example, that's going to make it so like if you have a wide vibrato, I have a really wide vibrato. When I'm singing, I put autotune on, but only in chromatic mode. So it's not pulling me anywhere crazy. It's not like sticking me to a key, but it's just like if I'm a tiny bit under anywhere, it's just pulling the ends of my notes up because my flex tune is up too, right? So it's just pulling the ends of my notes up. And yeah, it just makes it so that you can create more and more freely and not be so technical about your approach with the singing part, if that makes sense.
Yeah, another thing to
Yeah,
make artists feel really comfortable where they are and
exactly.
understand where
Exactly.
to get to. I love that.
I honestly like I worked with a singer recently that everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, they have a really hard time singing. They whatever. This is going to be a project for you." And I got them in, and it wasn't bad at all. They just needed some autotune because they were feeling really anxious about their pitch. Once I put the autotune on, they start relaxing. Their pitch gets better because then they're relaxed, right? And then their performance gets better because now they can relax and not be so you know whatever. It's just it's all a psychological game, like this whole thing. So
wild. Oh my gosh. Okay. One last question I think we have time for. The difference between working in a studio for an album and working in music for TV.
The difference mainly is that there's a lot of different people that it gets approved by. And then also, no, actually, I mean, that's one of the main differences, but I think more so, it's been very cool to pay attention to scripts and because I'll read the script like for the episodes that I'm working on and being able to pull apart the nuances that the song is trying to express emotionally and then going there because it's more dynamic than you would do a typical album that's not going to have like that kind of visual component and storyline. And when there are these like deep things in the story that then you can say, okay, cool, this is how we're going to make that come across vocally is so fun. It's really cool because it's not so much theater. It's not all the way theater, but it's not all the way pop either. So it's like this happy little medium, and it's really cool. I love it.
So fun.
Yeah, but it's a lot of very quick turnarounds. That's another thing. That's,
right.
Like with
in and out.
Yeah, well, yeah, because things have to go through so many approvals. Like the work is, you get people for, okay, you have this person for 1 hour, you have this person for 2 hours, you have this person for whatever. And so you're just constantly going through a lot of songs and whatever, but it's great.
Oh, that sounds really exciting.
How long is the work day?
Yeah.
Well, how long is your work day?
Oh my gosh, when I'm working on that and because I usually travel to do that, my work day is like 14 hours and I just then go back to the hotel, go sleep, do it again.
Yeah.
So.
I'm amazed.
I'm in my recovery period right now.
Good. Yeah, you probably need it. Well, I think I said this before, but it's been a great pleasure talking to you, and I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God.
I love this festival. I'm so excited that you guys always bring me back for something, and it's so cool that I keep doing stuff in Canada. I just went to Canada for the first time recently to Vancouver for work, and maybe I'll make it to Manitoba one day.
Winnipeg in the summertime, probably. Or winter is fun for like the novelty of so much snow. It's ridiculous.
Don't believe her, Simone. Don't come in the winter.
Maybe I'll come in the summer. It snowed in Vancouver one time when I was there, and I was like, "This is lovely," but it was one day. No,
yeah,
okay.
No,
That's
we
it.
have like 6 feet of snow outside right now, so please, best not to come here now.
Yeah, I'm good. No, like. Thank you, though.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks to everyone who came and watched this live stream and gave their questions. Much appreciated. And thanks to Alex for hosting.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Heather. And this has been lovely.
Wonderful. Well, I'll say goodbye. Hope you have a wonderful evening and you enjoy your off time.